Hey, how you doing? This is David Patterson from the Pioneer Football League, and this is Football 101, an introductory level class for both our young coaches in training that we're about to try to open their horizons and get them connected with some of our high school programs and possibly college and beyond programs who are looking for some great young talent, young football minds that are looking to coach and teach the game of football on higher levels. It also serves as an introductory level course for some of our parents and some of our staff members that are on the youth divisions to give them some best practices and allow them to have a really good solid foundation for teaching the game of football. So this is Football 101. Let's get started. So this is, as I said, an introduction to football strategy and theory. It's for beginner level coaches. Oftentimes we send our coaches to these amazing clinics with college coaches, coordinators, head coaches, position coaches from some of the top-notch high schools in the nation. And just missing the verbiage and not knowing the language and the background that we're providing in this 101 class, it's easy for some of our young coaches to either kind of fall behind or not get what they need out of that advanced level course because they don't have the basic building blocks. And that's why we're here today. So this is chapter 1. Structure and organization of a team unit. We're going to teach you how to get this thing together. We're going to go over basic offensive principles, basic defensive principles, and then drill work principles. There's different ways to coach the game of football. We're not talking about the difference between a wing T spread offense. We're not talking about the difference between running a 3-3-5, a 5-2, or a 4-3. We're going with the basic building blocks of football. There's some building blocks that are essentially for us non-negotiables if you're going to be a member of the Pioneer Football League. Understand, first thing is, football is a game. And it's a wonderful game. It's part of the fabric of society. It has become truly America's game. The spirit behind the game of football is something that is second to none. We're the only sport that actually has homecoming. It was made for us. Traditions matter. And the handing down of tradition from father to son, and in these nowadays, mother to daughter, and these opportunities that football provides is traditions that really matter. We're non-discriminatory. Football players come in all shapes and sizes, and they have a varying amounts of talent and ability, and we're going to teach you how to get them all on the field and get them all productive, and above all else, have fun playing the game of football. The locker room becomes a brotherhood and sometimes a sisterhood. The locker room itself builds bonds and builds character and builds these relationships that are just not seen in other sports. And it's very important for us to remember that the locker room, when the players are enjoying all the benefits of what football provides, that we provide that safe sanctuary for them. And by doing our best practices, we make the game challenging both intellectually and physically, but moreover, we still make the game fun. And remember that it is a game. It's supposed to be fun. It's not about you. It's about these kids. You're not Vince Lombardi. It's not the Super Bowl. You don't have to take yourself more seriously than what you need to be. It's different today than in years past, where a lot of some of the new research that are coming out is expressing the benefits of positive interactions with players. The number one reason why players quit is because it's not fun. And there is a way to make the game challenging. There's a way to make the game just as difficult as it's always been, but at the same time be engaging and have fun. It's a culture, and the culture of your organization needs to be engaging to kids just as much as parents. And if you have this culture, the culture is going to end up eating strategy for breakfast. You may not be the most talented team to get on the field, but if you have a culture and if you have a system that everybody is bought into, that's going to carry you further than the talent that you have accrued on the field. And without really realizing it, people respond to strong cultures, and understand this, that they respond to a culture of negativity just as much as positivity. So if you have a negative vibe that's going through your camp, a negative vibe that's going through your parents or through your players, it's going to spread like wildfire. So get a positive energy and set the culture for your organization, and that way that carries on and you get control of the outcomes, regardless of if you're hoisting the trophy at the end of the year or you're struggling to win a game. So we're going to go over some of these practice principles. First thing is, make practice fun. It shouldn't be an endless siege. It shouldn't have no starting point and no ending point. We have a defined starting point. We have a defined ending point. The drill should be football related. Now, this is a matter of opinion. Some agree, some don't agree. In the Patriot system, this is how we do things. In the Patriot system, if it's not football related, we don't do it. Our players stay conditioned through football drills, whether it be running kickoff, kick return, finishing out a play, running vertical routes. If we have a pace to our practice, we can work in conditioning without having to do wind sprints, snakes, forever running these run tests or what have you, or endless push-ups and sit-ups. And for the little guys, understand that they can do push-ups and sit-ups for days. They don't really get tired, but you only have a limited amount of time to teach the game of football. And that time that we have, we need to teach the game of football. So just keep in mind when you're doing your practice plan to incorporate conditioning within what you are doing. So there's not a lot of standing around, and they get their conditioning through playing the game of football. Get everybody involved. No standing around. Coach everyone to do everything, especially on the lower levels. Tackle. Coach everybody, because you're going to need everybody. One of the great things that we did with the Patriot program last year is that every single player that showed up for games played. We had a plan that everybody to get on the field, and this is adult football, which is rare. But ultimately, why is a guy on your team if he's not going to play? And since we log in 4,000 miles of travel, we're not taking a guy 6 hours away. We're taking a guy on a plane ride somewhere to watch football. They're there to play. And those guys sitting on the sideline wondering what they could do, if you don't have a strong culture, those are the guys that are going to end up messing up your program. Teach the game. Use the language of football from start to finish. Don't say move over to the left, don't move over to the right. Get in a 3 technique. Hey, I need you to outside shade of the guard. Hey, I need you to slot your 3x2. Whatever it is, you're using the language of football. You're not converting it into everyday language because they need to have football as a second language. Football in itself has a language that when you speak it, people in the football community understand that you know what you're talking about. And this is what we're going to go over today, how you take yourself and separate yourself from the other coaches in the room that are asking questions. Don't be in one of these advanced level courses with a coach from this school or that NFL team and just be there to look at highlight tapes and go ooh and ah. Try to figure out why they're split so tight. Why is it that they use this type of formation? Why is it that they have do this particular drill work before this particular drill? What's the purpose of the sequencing? Those type of questions will get you to stand out and also be more beneficial to your program rather than you looking at their film and they're trying to teach you something and you're looking at it like it's a highlight reel, because there's a difference. Practice principles. Attention to detail. Address all mistakes in a productive way. And I know this gets tough, especially when people make the same mistakes over and over again, and this is something that I have to work on myself. But all of them should have a productive method to it and relate it to the game. So if we make a mental mistake and we go off sides in practice, just have to explain to them in certain situations this is crippling. Because if we're in 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 5 and now we're in 2nd and 10, the dynamics of our offense are a lot different. On the defensive side of the ball, if we have a team pinned and it's 3rd and 10 and now we're off sides, Third and 5 is a lot more manageable. Giving up extra downs. Have those conversations with your players. You want smart football players, not just guys that are beasts that, go through a brick wall and don't try to figure out why they're doing it. Player coaches. First thing that I'd say to my players the first day of camp is, you could be a coach or you could be a player. You can't be both. And that's a decision that you're going to have to make. Because when you have player coaches on the field, it ends up being chaotic. They're trying to go into two different hats. And some of your players will even tell you what this guy's doing, what that guy's doing. First thing that I ask them when they tell me about what the right guard is doing, how do you know that? If you're the wide receiver, how do you know that the right guard's not blocking? How are you paying attention? And more importantly, how are you doing your job when you're paying attention to what everybody else is doing? Doesn't make much sense. Have a plan, and have a plan in writing. See a lot of coaches, especially in youth, that are out there coaching football just for the sake of coaching football. They don't have a plan. I'm a teacher for the Department of Education in New York City. If you don't have a lesson plan, you're lost. You need to have a lesson plan. You need to understand what you're teaching and the sequence you're teaching it. And also it helps enroll your assistant coaches and all the coaches around you so that they don't feel as though their time is being wasted. They know exactly what's coming up and exactly what's being done. Have a plan and make sure you have it in writing. Start on time and end on time. If some of your guys are coming to practice late and then you extend practice for them, they're going to continue to show up late. So you got to end practice on time, having a good time, cut it off, and when they're like, oh, we can't stay longer. Hey, can we get 5 more reps in? Yes, we can, when you're on time at next practice. And that way they get into these good habits. And just having pride in what you do. Make sure that your program has the expectation of professionalism out of its players, and more importantly, you have that same expectation out of yourself when you're telling these players how your operation runs. Because if your players see that you don't have a practice plan and you're just winging it, they're going to notice it, and there's a difference. The role of practice. Championships are won in practice. They're not won in games. The preparation that you put in during the week. Woody Hayes said that the hay is in the barn by Thursday, and he's absolutely right. Whether you win or lose, that's decided during the week. If you're not properly prepared for what you're going to see on game day, and your players don't have an idea of what they're going to face and what they're going to see, the guesswork is going to cost you a couple games. Habits are established in practice. Your strengths and weaknesses get established in practice, but exposed on game day. So whatever it is that your deficiency was in practice, it's going to come out during the game. So you might as well handle it in practice and save yourself the agony. Special teams is part of the game, which means it should be part of your practice as well. If you're not practicing special teams, you're going to end up losing games. You're going to lose at least one game on special teams during the course of the year, whether it be on some type of return, failure to protect the punter, some type of special team, because it is a valuable part of our game. Huge initiative. The NFL partnered up with USA Football, did this heads up program. It is the gold standard of player safety practices in football. And at the Pioneer Football League, you need to have a heads up certification. And what the heads up certification does, it prevents you from putting yourself out there to get sued for reckless practices. You see on YouTube the drills where two players, sometimes they're youth players, go head on from 15, 20 yards away. Oohs and ahs and big contact. You're talking about kids and you're talking about people's bodies. And for the older guys, you can talk about guys that have to go to work on Monday. Most injuries that are unnecessary occur from the following reasons. First thing, head's in the wrong place. If you don't teach proper tackling, proper blocking, and keeping your head out of the game, you're reducing the amount of contact, you're reducing the amount of times that the head comes into contact with somebody else's pads or somebody else's helmet. You're practicing the wrong way. Temperatures. Some of you guys practice during the summertime where temperatures get up 80, 90, 100 degrees. just keeping in mind of the temperature and the heat, and especially for programs that don't practice that often, and your players have not adapted to the extreme heat. So you do have to keep that in mind. Make sure you have plenty of water breaks, and understand that if you don't give them water breaks, besides setting yourself up for an issue or a possible tragedy, you're not getting the productivity out of your players if they're dehydrated. Proper warm-up. Seen this way too many times out of teams, especially in the New York area. Game time is 3 o'clock. They're showing up at 2:55. There's no possible way your muscles can go from completely resting, either in a car or on a bus, to playing a full-fledged game of football in 5 minutes. It's going to be a proper warm-up, proper stretching, running over some plays, getting the muscles warmed up in order to execute and be able to perform properly. That's what it is. Speed. A lot of injuries occur from excessive speed, which is the reason why you want your players to be more intellectual than most people. Myself, I coach my players to be intellectuals because I want the speed of the game to slow down. I want them to anticipate what they're about to see, and that way they spend less time reading the play and more time reacting. If you cut down the speed, the players are able to react and be able to put their bodies in a position to avoid issues, unnecessary injuries. Football is a rough game, don't get me wrong. There will be injuries that occur, but you don't want unnecessary injuries. So let's talk about the practice plan. As a coach, you're a teacher. You need a lesson plan. And as a coach, you need a practice plan. It's the same thing. All coaches need to be on the same page. Modifications for players. So you may have a player that's new to the game. Are they going to practice the exact same way on their day one as your player who's been playing for 3-4 years? Absolutely not. There's got to be some type of modifications for players based on their experience, their injury status. So for us, we basically have a list of players that are not practicing at all, a list of players that will be no contact, and a list of players that are full contact. And there's different varieties of this particular system where it's identifiable. For programs that have a little bit more resources, they usually put these guys in different colored jerseys, whether it be a red jersey as a medical issue, a yellow jersey is, take it easy because this particular player is just coming off an injury. Plenty of times, especially in the city, players' equipment hasn't come in. Why are they in a line during a tackling drill if they're practicing? And why are they practicing without a helmet? If you have guys that are practicing missing helmets or missing shoulder pads, they should be doing non-contact in a separate area. And they should not be touching at all. Pioneer best practice, especially in times where it's difficult to make sure everybody's properly equipped for the first week of camp, going through training camp during August when you're still waiting for helmets to be refurbished or what have you, is to either completely strip it down and have no pads on or have all pads on. Don't have a player that has a helmet but is missing shoulder pads. Has shoulder pads, missing a helmet, because it's going to entice them to do more contact than what they really need to be doing. Time. Make sure that your time is structured. Include all water breaks, your start times, your end times, how the flow of your practice is going to be. In your practice plan, make sure everybody's active, make sure you're utilizing everybody. If you have a lot of guys standing around, create a second team, send them with a second coach, and have them run their plays and go over things that they need to reinforce. Separate the ones that are your top tier players that can work on more dynamic stuff or more intricate stuff, complicated things, from your players that are brand new. And again, it could be just a New York thing. If you have low numbers in practice, and sometimes it's just one of those days, maybe it's raining, or a freak day where it's like a holiday and there's a lot of guys missing or what have you, numbers don't matter. If you end up quitting on your own practice because you don't have the numbers, it's going to affect your ability to practice for the course of the year, because players are going to be guessing whether it's practice or not. You need to be able to tell your players, hey, look, anybody who comes to practice is going to be a better player after they leave. And I've had practices in the beginning of of the structure of a franchise. If we started a brand new team, our first practice we might get 6 or 7 guys. Those 6 or 7 guys got the best workout of their life, and we moved on and kept on boosting and keep on recruiting. But at the end, you always tell guys, make sure you come to practice because practice has value. Make sure you crawl before we walk. This isn't John Madden football. Make sure they understand the fundamentals first. If your players don't know how to block and tackle, which is the basic fundamental part of the game, they should not be running your favorite play on Madden for the Patriot Conference. This would be our typical practice plan. And this is how we're going to flow when we open camp in April. We have a start time. That begins the stretch. Then we work a fundamental drill, a basic element of the game, blocking and tackling. Heads-up football drills, which we'll go over in our 102 class. Then we work over our position drills, get guys situated and get basic skills of the position working. Then we work our team drills, team offense, team defense. On the special teams, and then a warm down, some type of team building exercise. Now, the warm down, in terms of team building, we ramp it up with our either full contact thud or full 11-on-11 or what have you. Our warm down, we do either like a 7-on-7, some type of competition or what have you, to get guys, just a team building thing, get guys really interacting with each other, come up with some type of dynamic, fun activity to end practice on. One of my favorites is Fat Boy Kick Return, where the punter kicks the ball to your heaviest lineman, and if they, catch, 5 out of 10 or what have you, they get out of doing, weight room or push-ups, or that'll be the one time where you would do like a full sprint or whatever, 50-yard run or cut down laps and stuff like that. Once you start training camp, you're getting in, everybody's fresh. 3 days at least without pads. 3 days of drills teaching fundamentals without pads. When you put the pads on, the guys have a habit of going too fast and they lose their fundamentals, they lose their mechanics. We don't want that. So when you start and introduce them to contact, it needs to be from 3 days explaining exactly how the drill's supposed to run, make sure their hands are in the right place, make sure their feet are in the right place, and then we move on from there. Once you get padded up, you're going to start contact. First, you're going to check out how they contact on air. They're getting a breakdown position, their hands are right, their feet are in the right place, and they have all their equipment on. Once you see they're doing that right, have them hit a bag. The bag does not hit them back. Again, checking to see their hands, checking to see their feet, making sure everything's in the right position so you know that that player has the ability to defend themselves in a contact drill. And then after they work on a bag, that's when you start working on another player. And even when you're working on another player, the advanced level of that is you work on another player that is a predetermined winner. And then you get to the competitive level. So you'd say, all right, we're doing angle tackle. You are the tackler. You're giving yourself up. So they put their hands up and drive through the player. It's a predetermined winner, and that's how you build the drill. Make sure you give them feedback. If you do not give them feedback, they're going to think that they're doing it right. If they're doing it wrong, tell them that they're doing it wrong. Lose your games. Football is about 2 things. It's blocking and it's about tackling. Segment 1, getting started. No plays. We set the foundation. We're working on safe football drills. We're organized, as in we're putting the organized in organization. We're going over exactly how the drill goes. We're keeping everything in a short distance. We're not all over the place. We're keeping the drills very simplified, and we're working on blocking and tackling, getting in the right level, getting your pad level straight, and getting through. Once they get this, then you're moving on from there. Your basic offensive principles. How does an offense work? Well, some of these things are very, very basic, so I'm going to get through them relatively quick. Formations and basic plays. I'm going to tell you how this thing is structured. Step 1. Teach your kids how to block. Don't grab or hold. Keep your hands inside. Keep your eyes up. Teach the difference between run blocking and pass blocking. Run blocking, you can do a base block, driving with your hands in the middle. You can do a shoulder block, right shoulder, left shoulder block. You alternate them. Keep them with their eyes up. Keep them with their hands inside. If you do not teach your kids how to block, and then on game day you have holding call after holding call, and then you're looking at me, or you're looking at the commissioner or what have you, and you're complaining about all the holding calls, we're going to look at you like you've lost your mind. There's a difference between run blocking and pass blocking. There are some programs where I've seen the linemen don't get the play. They're not in the huddle. If your linemen don't know the play, they don't know whether it's a run or a pass, they don't know whether to run block or pass block. Again, just a basic element of the game that you need to teach these kids. Linemen are a forgotten dinosaur in youth football in New York City. You must teach them the basics, and that's the most important part. Everybody gets all excited about the running back that's amazing, or the quarterback that can throw a mile, but if you can't protect them and you don't block for them, you're really selling yourself short. You're going to beat a team 10 times out of 10 if your line is dominant. So let's talk positions on the field. The ones that are so very basic that you guys are most familiar with, the quarterback. Quarterback's behind the center. Now, we're talking about the fundamentals of blocking. The most important guy is your center. If you can't get the ball from your center to your quarterback, you're going to have a very long day. On each side of the center, the guards. On both sides of the guards is the tackles. If you have a receiver who is lined up on the line of scrimmage next to the tackle, that's the tight end. He's on the line of scrimmage if the receiver next to him is off the line of scrimmage. There's different rules when it comes to eligibility, and also when we play in Canada, there's a bunch of different rules when it comes to who's on, who's off, where you can line up or what have you. Offense, you take the fullback out, put a receiver in, take a tight end, make him into a receiver. The Philadelphia Eagles, who are my favorite team, will take a receiver out, put a tight end in, and mix up their formations. But make sure your formation is legal. Running holes. So, regardless of what you call your running plays, whether you call it dive, whether you call it down, whether you call it ram or bull, whatever it is that you call it, there's running holes. And there are different ways to identify the holes in the run game. The most common is the numbering system. 2, 4, 6, 8 to the right of the center, 1, 3, 5, 7 to the left of the center. So if you're running the ball to the middle of the field, you're doing dive type of football. It's a 1 or a 2, 3 or a 4. You're talking about center guard gap or guard tackle gap. Those are more your dive plays, your inside runs. When you're at the 5 or a 6, when you're outside the tackle, you're off tackle play. So you're trying to get inside of their widest defensive lineman, but at the same time, you're not racing to the sideline. And if you call a 7 or an 8, you're talking about a toss or a sweep, something to get to the boundary. How do you teach a run play? Well, how are you blocking? Are you blocking a man? Are you blocking an area? Or do you have an assignment? So when you're going to these upper level classes and you're seeing the coach from whatever university it is, their blocking scheme, are they blocking a person? Are they blocking an area, like a zone? Or do they have an assignment? Make sure you go over this with your players. So when you tell them what they're looking for is not just they block the guy in front of them, because if the defense shifts or moves their players around, once the ball is snapped, your guys are going to be lost. Establish what the critical area is. I really like doing this. Establishing what's the first block that we have to execute correctly. If we're running trap and we have a trap block that's going, I coach that particular trap block over and over and over again. And when it comes to the two guys that are performing the trap and the running back, exactly what they're going to see, exactly what they're going to participate. And if we establish that particular area, this play is going to work for us. Every play is designed on paper to go to the house. However, your players should know what their bread and butter plays are, which will get them 4, 5, 6 yards at a clip so they can keep on moving the chains and sustain a series. Work the exchange, protect the football. The biggest issue that leads teams to getting just swamped is the exchange and protecting the football, whether it be the center quarterback exchange or the quarterback running back exchange. If you have not gotten this thing together, by the time your first game comes around, you're going to have a long day. You cannot turn the ball over and play winning football. It is very, very tough to do. A lot of times, going to the coaching of the superstars, 11 players doing their job produces touchdowns. If you're coaching all 11 players, you're going to maximize what you're doing on both offense and defense. If you're just coaching your superstars, you're going to have fundamental breakdowns, and you're going to get frustrated pretty quickly. If you have a play that goes to the house, but you made 3 mistakes on it, it could be that on that particular play, the other team just made a fatal error that made you get a touchdown. However, you should acknowledge and coach and teach the 3 mistakes that you made on that play, regardless if you score the touchdown or not. Passing game. Well, how do you call pass plays? You can call it through a route tree or predetermined route plays. Predetermined route plays take a little bit more time in terms of practice time or what have you. It goes more on theory, whereas route trees are easier to manipulate and to adjust, especially in game. If you can adjust routes based on your calling of the play, it's a little bit easier. But again, it's just one of those things that I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but give you some options. Passing game coaching points. Pass protection. What are your rules? Is it inside gap? Is it outside gap? Is it man on? Who's going to pick up a hot read? Those type of items aren't an issue in practice, end up being an issue in games. Route discipline. The biggest issue in the pass game is chemistry. Getting your quarterback and the receiver on the same page. And if your routes are not crisp, and you need to take a look at what your receivers are doing in practice. If they're just perpetually running routes and they're just running all over the place, and you can't really predict where their route is going to be, you're going to have a hard time finding that guy in games, and then your receivers are going to get frustrated. That's why the quarterback has to be your most dependable guy and has to be the guy that's at practice the most. Even if he's the particular player that you're thinking about who may be more talented but misses a lot of practice, you got to go with the guy that makes more practices because he's going to find those receivers. Focus on mechanics with your receivers. Catching with the hands. There's some of our guys that look like All-Americans when they don't have pads on because they catch with their bodies. There's a huge difference. And again, practicing on air first. Guys are really quick to wanting to put a D back on them or a safety over top or what have you. Run the route first, get the route clean, catch the ball clean, get upfield, then work on somebody and try to go one-on-one. So when you put it together, play starts with a huddle. Center needs to have a presence and call the huddle. Major bone of contention, too many voices in the huddle. Needs to be one voice in the huddle. It's the center calling the play. And then once that starts, quarterback is the only one speaking in your huddle. Start with the play call. We call the play twice. We walk, and at that particular point, everybody gets the play, ready, break, and we're out, ready to run the play. Walking through things, make sure you walk through and practice exactly how these things go, exactly how you're huddling. Different situations. Sometimes you're going to have to speed it up, and in speeding up, show what the mistakes are. Practice against a shell defense. After you practice full 11, similar to tackling and blocking, after you practice on air, and you get it right on air, practice against a shell defense, where there's a predetermined winner, which is the offense. Then give it a go full speed. Know your rules, fix your formations, fix your mistakes. Make sure your formations are legal. It's very hard to argue with referees if you have illegal formations. It's very, very tough. Let's talk a little defense. Our defensive principles. What is your identity as a defensive coach? All defenders need to know their job on pass game and run game. is two different things. Very rarely do we have a guy on our upper level that is an every down player that gives us the best look in the pass game as they do in the run game. There is no perfect defense, mind you, but what is your plan to minimize your vulnerabilities? If you're running a lot of cover 2, there's a cover 2 area where you're going to be caught with your pants down. But if you're ready and willing to say, if my opponent beats me in that area, God bless him. If there was a perfect defense that stopped everything, there would be no reason to have multiple defenses. You need to have an aggressive defense, but it needs to be controlled. An aggressive defense that doesn't have discipline is going to give up a lot of points, a lot of penalties, a lot of coverage busts, a lot of assignment busts, and a lot of, we call them fatal mistakes, where the play goes to the house, and those absolutely suck. Tackling, it starts here. Break down, buzz your feet, hit, shoot, and rip. Basic elements of heads up football, and we'll go over that. This is your basic defense. We like to run a 4-3. Again, based on who you're playing or what your personal liking is, you can bring one of the safeties down and get more of a 4-4 look, or you can bring somebody back, make it more of a 4-2-5 look. You have 11 guys to get the job done. It's less important what you have at the start of the play, and more important that you're teaching them what their responsibilities are. On the line, just like on the offensive line, you have running holes. On the defensive line, you have techniques. These are the techniques. With the center, each side of the center, it's a 2-eye and a 2 technique. Opposite side of the guard, 3 technique. If you're outside shade of the tackle, 4 technique. Opposite side of the tackle, 5 technique. You have your 7 technique. And then if you're so wide out, just like the Eagles like to do, you got your 9 technique. And regardless of how you line them up, they need to know where they're going and what they're doing. Assign them gaps on run game. Make sure all your gaps are covered. Doesn't really matter if you have the linebacker going in the C and the defensive end going in the B gap. Doesn't matter to me. As long as they know where they are and all of your gaps are accounted for, I'm fine with it. Attack a shoulder. Are you forcing the ball inside? Are we forcing it outside? Are we a spill defender or a fill defender? Are we trying to force this ball into a funnel like we do in a 4-3? Or are we the type of defense that likes to chase everybody to the outside, and we're not going to go up the inside? We're going to chase everything and force everything outside. Whatever it is what is your identity, your players on defense should understand what that identity is. Pursuit. One of the fundamentals after you establish solid tackling is establishing solid pursuit. When I played in college, our coach, when we would watch film, had a camera that would move with the ball, and it's basically showing you 7 yards in each direction of where the football is. If you weren't in that frame at the end of the play, there was a problem. So you maintain your discipline, but our mantra on defense is 11 hats to the ball. And I give huge kudos to any defense that when you take a picture, whenever I see a picture from one of our game days and you see all 11 of our helmets, it rarely happens, when you see all 11 of your defensive helmets in a picture, that's the spirit of a defense for us. 11 hats to the ball. How do we define success? Is it about who makes the most tackles? No, it's about who does their job. So if you're a D tackle in our system, you're not going to get all the tackles. You're not going to get that many tackles. However, you can change the face of a game by being a 2-gap player and doing your job. And that's what's going to keep you on the field. Information that you give your guys about what they're going to see when they actually see it. They're going to trust you more, and you're going to develop a solid relationship with your players. Recognize what you're seeing in your formations. If they come out with a formation that your guys are unfamiliar with, they're going to feel unprepared. Which what their reads are. High hat versus low hat. If it's a high hat, they're going to pass the ball. I need to get to my pass responsibility. If it's low hat, it's a run game. They're running the ball. I follow my run keys, and I'm downhill. Get my feet right gets me to the play. Go over what the footwork should be like when you're attacking their prime plays. And, of course, I can't say it and stress it enough, 11 hats to the ball. Your defensive theory. Again, I love a 4-3. I've always ran a 4-3 on this level. In high school, I ran a 4. We ran a 4-4. Not many use it anymore. Love talking with coaches. And I ask them, what do you run? And then when they tell me if it's 3-4, 4-3, or 5-2, or whatever it is, well, why do you run that? A lot of crickets. We run a 5-2 because nobody really passes in our league. We're heavy in the run, and we have a bunch of big boys up front. Hey, we run a 3-4 because we have a monster nose tackle that basically can allow us to protect the pass better. Got it. Do your players know why you run what you run? Do your coaches know why they run what they run? Again, making sure that they're the smartest guys on the field. Your defensive line, that's level 1. These are your big boys that are assigned to dive gaps, lead, blocker, absorption. If a fullback's coming downhill, they have a lead blocker. They maybe use a tight end to lead block in some type of wedge. The defensive line absorbs that lead blocker. The ends have an option to either go inside or contain. Your linebackers usually have the opposite, inside or contain. What exactly are they doing? Are they pinching everything inside? Are they forcing everything outside? Your run defense on this level is the most important. Then on your second level, you have your linebackers. They have a tough responsibility because they have the most information to process in the pass game and the run game. So they have pass and run game responsibilities. And oftentimes you have linebackers who have a run mentality and they leave stuff to be desired when the other team's passing the ball, or vice versa. So what are their read steps? So when they take their read steps, are they reading it right away and identifying run as quickly as possible to get downhill and make plays on the other side of the line of scrimmage? Or are they hesitant because they're not sure what they're seeing? Do they know what they're looking for? So the space that they end up occupying, what's the starting point? What's the ending point? If you have a linebacker that doesn't know what he's doing, monitor the area that he covers. If he spends the time standing still because he's trying to read the play for basically the whole entire play, you got to coach him up and get him familiar with what he's looking for and get him to react faster. Our middle linebacker makes the calls. He's the captain of the defense. And we fill in gaps on run, and we're getting depth on pass. We want to keep everything in front of us on pass game. When it comes to the linebackers, get out there, understand what your assignment is. If you have flat responsibility, fly out there, trust what you see. If you make a mistake going 100 miles an hour. Your third level is the secondary. These are your safeties and your corners. Your corners have primary run pass responsibility. If they're making tackles in the run game, you got big problems. Our safety is the last line of defense. If they're making a bunch of tackles, you got problems. Pass is the priority. You give run support after the read is made. And the coverage call comes from the safety who's looking over the whole entire field. The coverage call has to come, it has to be repeated across the formation. Very important for communication across the board, because if one of those secondary guys makes a mistake, a fatal mistake on pass, you're going to end up looking pretty bad. So our run game defense. High hat versus low hat. Identify who the lead blocker will most likely be and get your defense used to seeing who that guy is and how you're going to cover him up. Force it inside, force it outside. Are they going off tackle? Are we moving a gap over to try to prevent them from getting where they want to go? How do I get a gap over if I'm trying to chase a play? Am I pursuing by going directly to the play, or am I chasing from the backside just in case there's a reverse? Make sure you teach all these nuances, because you need 11 hats to the ball, but you need them 11 hats to come to the ball in the proper path. Drill work principles. All of our stuff has to be USA football. It's the gold standard, as I said before. You can make modifications. So start with a heads-up football drill that you see. And if you want to modify it once your guys have it on a basic level, then do so. Build it. And when I say build it, build the distance. Add something to it. combo it so that if you have a blocking drill, instead of just the blocking drill at the combo block and then a chase to the quarterback, or something that makes it a little bit more intricate, a little bit more complicated. And also, understand, I get that a lot of people have seen football movies, the bull in the ring, and different drills or what have you, where guys come down on a collision course or what have you. Ask yourself the golden question before doing any drill. What does this drill do to help my players on the football field? If I don't do it in a game, I shouldn't be doing it in practice. It's not the time to make stuff up. It's the time to practice football. Typical practice, when it starts, we have the stretch. We do both a dynamic segment and a static segment. There's arguments for the benefits of each. Our dynamic stretch is more in terms of the most, our newest technology, our newest information from experts say that dynamic stretching is a lot more beneficial. We still do a static stretch, more, to tell you the truth, of getting the guys calm and mentality in the right path or what have you. We go through the static stretch pretty quickly because, again, it's more of a team bonding thing and a kind of calm before the storm, settle in and get everybody focused. Conditioning. For us, conditioning is a separate activity. Have conditioning sessions. The football field is where football is played. Conditioning sessions, take it into the street, take it into a gym, take it into a health club or do it on a treadmill. That's where conditioning takes place. We only have a very limited amount of time for us on the field. We have to do football stuff on the field. Go overboard with this, but we do use a little bit of conditioning as quote-unquote punishment. It's also a measuring stick for progress. Hey, you ran 15 down and backs because we made 15 mistakes. Hey, let's go for 10 next practice, or let's get down to 5 or what have you. It's just used as a measuring stick to figure out progress, but by no means is it for the sake of conditioning. Individuals. We're teaching the game as slowly as necessary. This is the time for basic skills, attention to detail. Plays are installed in segments, and this is when the speed of practice is slowed down, especially for your guys that are not really familiar with the game. The team session is not starting from square one. This is where we increase the speed. On offense, we have a installation period. We make adjustments, and we go through repetition during this segment. By the time we are ready to go full tilt, we do not make adjustments. We get as much on the practice film as possible, then we go back, reevaluate the film, and then at the next practice, we fix the mistakes. But if you haven't fixed it in team at that particular point, just let it ride, because you need to have a pace in practice. After you get through the team sessions where the offense is building, the defense is building, and you're ready to put it together, the 7-on-7 and the 11-on-11. We're not slowing down. This is the time where you play yourself on the field or off the field. When we talk about why you're playing or why you're not playing in terms of your playing time, this is the part where you prove yourself and get yourself on the field. So this is the time where we're not making adjustments. The adjustments have already been made. The mistakes are made that are fixed during the next segment of individuals situations, so your players know what to expect. So you should be going over down and distance. This is what we're going to do. 2-point conversions, especially if you don't have a kicker that's really reliable, you're going to want to go over a lot of 2-point conversion plays. All that stuff, all those items, things that you want to pay attention to during the 7-on-7, 11-on-11. Anybody that slows down the drill and slows down the reps, eliminate from the particular drill, pull them out. If you have an extra coach, have the other coach talk to them separately or what have you. The purpose of this is to get as many reps as possible. So here's some best practice drills so you can check out so you can start to see what you're looking at. So here are some examples of some good practices, and of course USA Football provides the most comprehensive way. The drills that we're doing on air, here's some examples on the offensive line. As you can see, we have different points of sources or what have you. And when you go to these upper level courses and they start to show you these particular clips and such, you can pay attention to the following. What drills am I doing first? The drills that they don't have pads on, or the drills that there's no contact, those are drills that especially the little guys can start to do. Don't go to an advanced level drill that has full pads on that you see the University of Oregon doing. Go to the basic building block level. Again, we're not going to tell you exactly what to run or exactly what system to use. We're just going to get you in the theme of talking football using the language. So now you see there's a little bit more contact, but there's a predetermined winner. They're not battling it out, and the player that is being defeated, so to speak, does not mind getting defeated. There's a predetermined winner. And as you can see, again, these guys know what they're doing. You see Phil Fulmer from the University of Tennessee and some of his best practices, making sure these guys have their feet in the right place, get off the of the original defender, go into the double team. Here's an example of just really quickly of a full-fledged full contact drill. So for the D-backs, again, you have, especially lately, the ladders and all these other dynamic devices in order to get guys' footwork in the right place. Really good, but you have to understand where they're going to apply this when they're actually playing football. So the change of direction, again, these are great drills to do, especially for kids that don't have pads, getting their feet in the right place, getting their hips to be correct in terms of mechanically. This is one of my favorite drills, in and out, changing directions, and it gives them a good workout, builds the muscle, and the guys get a really good workout. Here's some footage from the combine. As you can see, the drills that they're doing, things that you're going to see on a football field. Change of direction. You got long field drills, short field drills. So you can see most of the long field drills that they're doing, not resulting in contact at the end. You don't even need pads on. Here's a sequence of drills from Iowa State University. Again, some other really good practices, getting the feet together, turning. And for the defensive backs, the introduction of a football into the drill should come a little bit later on, because they'll be so fixated on whether they catch or drop the football, which is a very small part of the drill. The major part of the drill that you want to pay attention to is, again, the feet being in the right place, the placement of the hands in certain cases, and hip movement. If they have all these things correct, then introduce a football, and then you can see it from there. But you should be throwing a football around if their feet are all jacked up and in the wrong place. Changing directions, you see there's a coach right there, and through the time, this segment is when you're going to do the coaching. You're not going to do it when we're 7-on-7 or 11-on-11. There's an example of a predetermined winner. You're making a play, you're closing out. You could add in the element of, fumbling or stripping or what have you, but in this case, again, it's a predetermined winner. We're not proving anything here. When you get their mind in the correct place, which is where my feet are, where my hands are, holster the hands, get it nice and close. Once they're under control, then the contact will come. If they're in the right place, it makes tackling a whole lot easier. This is an advanced level drill. If you start with this drill, you're going to end up with a lot of problems, because they're not going to get their feet to the play, and that collision in 10 yards is going to look a lot different. If you are unable to get your guys to have their feet in the right position and it's still looking sloppy, cut down the distance, or go back a step and go to a predetermined winner. Go back to non-contact to make sure that they collect themselves and do it right. The best in the business right here with Coach Saban. As you can see, this is pretty interesting. What I like to do is I don't like to say we're all going left, we're all going right, we're breaking to the left, we're breaking to the right. Notice how his movement decides if the play is going to the left or right, and he is forcing the defender to read what's going on. So if your players are used to just, on this drill I'm going to the right, as opposed to I'm looking and I'm reacting, again, going back to, if we don't do it on game day, we don't do it in practice. So on game day, they're not going to tell you whether they're going right or left. So again, Saban's going to coach up all the mistakes, and he's going to get a full-length discussion when it comes to individuals. Once they go to full team and 7-on-7, it's going to look a lot different. But teaching the reads, teach them to be in the right place, and everything will follow. Here's a pursuit drill. Once we're putting it together, getting 11 hats to the ball. As you can see, the pursuit is according to the angle in which the coach decides that he wants his players to take. But at the end, everybody comes back downhill, and there's 11 hats together. That team unity, that bond with the defense, if you get them going on full cylinders and get them pursuing and being dedicated to 11 hats to the ball, then you're gonna have a lot of success. All right, so we finally get to game day. Here's some of our game day principles. You can always tell a coach that actually knows what they're doing on game day just by literally the way that where they're standing. Coaches that stand directly square to the ball and are watching the game as though they're a fan by like following the ball, not really good business. You can't watch everybody. What you want to do is make sure, especially when you have a staff, is to watch a particular segment. I'm watching the line. I'm watching the skill guys on pass plays. I'm watching the routes. I'm watching the mechanics of my running back. I can't possibly look at 11 guys on the field at once. Can't happen. Managing situations. Go over clock management situations. Understand you can't take your timeouts with you to the next half. In certain situations before the 2-minute warning, especially if you're down, maximize the amount of plays, being aware of the play clock. And there's another, again, going to the New York City, I have coaches that tell me, oh, the ref ran the clock on us. Really? So how many plays did you run in the second half? What do you mean? I mean, how many plays did you run? Well, I don't know. So how do you know whether you got cheated or not out of those plays? If you know how many plays you ran and there's a play clock and it doesn't make sense from there, I understand what you're saying. But if you're just complaining for the sake of complaining and have no data to actually back you up, then it's going to fall on deaf ears and you're going to look pretty bad. Let's talk about officials. Favorite subject. Dealing with officials. There's judgment calls and then there's rules. In the Pioneer Football League, you can challenge plays. But you can only challenge plays if you believe that the rule that the official has stated is incorrect. So, for example, if there's a holding call and they assess you a 20-yard penalty, you can challenge the play and ask them to look in their rule book because the referee has the rule incorrect. You cannot challenge judgment calls, whether it was pass interference, whether it was a holding, whether the guy was in or out or what have you. Those plays are not reviewable. We don't have instant replay. Can't do it. But ultimately, if you know the rules and you have an issue, you can litigate your case by using your coach's challenge, and you get one per game. And as long as you are correct, you get another one. Again, starting with knowing the rules, a lot of you guys didn't even know that there's a challenge rule that's in the bylaws of the Pioneer Football League. Let's talk about arguing with refs. Arguing with refs is a waste of time. It loses accountability for players because the players think they lost the game because of officials, and they haven't. They lost the game because they turned the ball over 5 times. They lost the game because they didn't execute. They lost the game for a multitude of reasons having nothing to do with the officials. It loses focus on the task at hand. The task at hand is getting to the next play. And although later on you could take up with the officials of the league or what have you, you could take up with the referees exactly what occurred, it's going to make things worse if your focus is on the officials. We go through many different types of rules during the course of a season. Playing in Canada, playing in New England, playing college programs. Sometimes we play NFL rules, college rules, Canadian rules. We switch from rules to rules. Usually in the pregame meeting with the officials, I will tell them, hey, look, we go from rules to rules very often. If I'm unclear or I think that you made a mistake, I'm going to ask you, well, my understanding of the rule is this. Are we correct? And if they tell you you're incorrect, then you didn't go hard. So you have an opportunity to work with these guys. And if they're wrong, they'll say that they're wrong. But you can allow them to be wrong, and that's okay. If you go 100 miles an hour and tell them that they're wrong and you end up being wrong, it's bad for business. In case of emergency, keeping things from going from bad to catastrophe. We had a team one time that got destroyed like 70-something to nothing. It was pretty disgusting. There's no reason for you to get beat 70-something to nothing. There are ways in which you can protect yourself, and and protect your team. And let me be very clear on this. Taking your team off the field or ending a game early is quitting. And quitting is never acceptable. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, or what have you. It's the responsibility of the coach to get them through the tough time, get them through the challenge. If you have taught your kids it is acceptable to quit, they will eventually quit on you when things get tough. If things are going bad and you know the game is out of reach, run the football. That's why we teach the exchange. If by the time the season starts you can't give an exchange from the center to the quarterback, the quarterback to the running back, then what are we really doing? And that means that you should be teaching multiple linemen how to be a center in case your center goes down. Multiple kids how to take a snap at quarterback in case your quarterback goes down. Multiple kids how to play running back. But if you see a team that has 10 players on the sideline and they're quitting because they're getting beat 40-0, you did your kids a disservice. If things are going bad, run the football. They'll run the clock. Keep in bounds. Run the ball 3 times. On 4th down, punt the football. You should, on the 10U level, you don't even actually punt the football. You just walk off the yardage. So it's even less excusable to get that type of blown out in a 10U game where you don't even have to get the mechanics of the snap and the punt off. But what happens is some of these guys think that they're playing John Madden football and keep throwing the ball gets tipped around, intercepted, return for a touchdown. They're trying to run around and make a play to make up 40 points in the last quarter, and they end up dropping the ball and the team goes the other way for a touchdown. If you protect the ball and you limit penalties and you keep coaching through the thing, you'll be able to get through it and go on to the next week, and you can reinforce the fact that quitting is not acceptable and that you play from the first kickoff to the last whistle. It's a character thing. So what should you take from today? Football must be fun. You are a teacher. They learn your lessons whether it's positive or it's negative. Embrace the process of winning, not the result. Your record doesn't speak to your ability as a coach. How much your players go from the point that they started with you to the point they ended with you is how you measure if you're a good coach or not. This is not the NFL. You're there for these kids and you're there for these parents. Those are our customers and they need to be respected. If you have a culture and that culture is based on the system and the brotherhood of football, you're going to be successful even more than if you concentrate solely on winning. Because if winning doesn't happen right away, you're going to end up with an issue and guys aren't going to buy into your system. Individual commitment to a group effort. That's what makes everything work. There's a top and there's a bottom. There's got to be a lead. So make sure everybody knows their position and make sure they play their position well. Because it's not enough just to have the right people on your bus. You got to have the right people on your bus and they must be in the right seat in terms of the structure. That's the intro class. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that now you can go into some of the upper level courses and have a grip on exactly what you're seeing and exactly some of the questions that you should be asking. For our Pioneer coaches, please make sure you go to pioneer-league.com/coach. Fill out the registration. Put any prerequisites that you've had, any certifications. Go to the Heads Up Football certification. Get your Heads Up certification. Once you fill out the questionnaire or the 3 questions about the 101 class, you'll be in our registry as certified to teach in the Pioneer Football League. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for your work in working with these kids and young adults. Your work is appreciated. I know it's tireless and oftentimes thankless, but understand, not only do we have to do the job, even though we're volunteers, we have to do it right. It's not just enough that, oh, I'm here, but it's about providing a quality service to these kids. And ultimately, through these practices, you know that you're looking out for your kids, and although in a very rough, tough game like football is, our best practices are our safest practices, and you eliminate unnecessary issues. For the Pioneer Football League, this is David Patterson. Have a wonderful day.